be seated. Thanks to the San Francisco Police Department Color Guard for the presentation of colors, and also thank you, Alicia Barada, for that wonderful rendition of the national anthem. Well, good afternoon again. Most of you already know me. I'm Jeff Neely. I'm the Acting Regional Administrator for the Pacific Rim region. We're here with GSA in Region 9. This is a very exciting day for all of us. This afternoon, we all have the distinct honor of participating in a ceremonial kickoff of the modernization project and renovation of the historic 50 United Nations Plaza, also lovingly known as 50 UNP. For today's event, we're honored to have with us a number of special guests. I'd like to recognize our guest speakers who are up here on the podium with me today. First, the Honorable Gavin Newsom, Mayor of the City and County of San Francisco. Next, we have Mr. Dan Bernal, District Director for Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi. We also have Ms. Megan Miller, Field Representative for Senator Barbara Boxer. And also joining me up here today is Mark Donahue, Vice President, HKS Architects. Moving into this building in 2014 is a privilege for GSA. As the new home for the regional office, it'll be the hub of GSA activity in this area. It is historic and will be a modern, energy-efficient, state-of-the-art facility. But 50 UNP also holds an important place in history. In 1932, during the worst hardships of the Great Depression, the famous architect Arthur Brown Jr. was commissioned to design a new federal building in the growing city of San Francisco. He went out of his way to make this building a complementary feature and integral part of the then nearly completed Civic Center area. The San Francisco Civic Center, the scene of events of national and international importance, including the founding of the United Nations and the drafting and signing of the post-World War II peace treaties with Japan, illustrates the era of turn-of-the-century municipal reform movements in the U.S. By general consensus, the Civic Center's architecture and plan are regarded as some of the finest and most complete manifestations of the City Beautiful movement. In fact, Henry Reed Hope, a well-known scholar of classical architecture, called it the greatest architectural ensemble in America. Way back in 1899, Mayor Phelan was considering city plan concepts that proposed establishing a grand civic center for San Francisco. And we all know what happened in 1906. After the earthquake and devastating fire, plans crystallized for the construction of a new city hall to replace the one destroyed. Over the ensuing 17 years, one by one, new facets were added to the Civic Center. Construction of the long-promised federal building, designed by Brown, was begun in late 1933 and completed in 1936. Its addition essentially brought the Civic Center to completion. And of course, the 70-year history of this building is both interesting and unique, including the very special Oval Office of Admiral Nimitz, which is being preserved in the building and will be right next to my office. How cool is that? I do want a special thanks, and you'll hear this a number of times, to the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. That is the act and the reason this building is going to be a beacon of sustainable design and achieve a LEED Gold certification from the U.S. Green Building Council. In other words, this building that has been empty for a number of years is now having life breathed back into it. GSA is taking bold new steps with an innovative open office environment, natural ventilation, and natural illumination. The renovation includes seismic upgrades, environmental remediation, new or upgraded mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems, restoration of historically significant interiors, courtyard, and exterior windows, redesign of office interiors to create modern offices, and upgrades for accessibility. The project will be a high-performance green building. But the truth of the matter is, The greenest building is not the new building that you construct to meet standards. It's the old building that you preserve, like 50 UNP. The building has lasted here for almost 80 years without really a major renovation and is still in actually very good shape. The biggest impact in the project is avoiding consuming raw resources. The configuration of the building provides ample daylight, views, direct environmental control to the occupants. Those are known as operable windows, which are all very green concepts. We have to add a few new systems, but when we are doing that, they're going to be high efficiency, low-cost systems, and we'll try at all costs to reuse the existing systems in the building. For many years, this building was a stalwart of our GSA inventory. It quietly served its tenants and the public, experiencing only minor changes and improvements and demanded very little investment. However, after a couple of those nasty California earthquakes, the government insisted that the building meet new seismic standards. We determined that those seismic standards would require major investments in the facility. And the problem, of course, was just that, the cost of fixing the seismic issues. So we seriously, for a while, considered options to dispose of the property. But then there became some momentum behind maintenance of this historic asset. One we actually toyed with for a short while was turning this over to the private sector under a long-term lease arrangement. That was a creative and interesting idea, but we in fact reached an impasse in trying to negotiate that. In 2008, it became very clear to me that GSA would be the ideal tenant for this building. The unique character of 50 UNP suits GSA as an occupant perfectly. After we leave 450 Golden Gate, our home just across a couple blocks away, and occupy this beautiful building, even more good things happen in terms of what GSA does. The space we're emptying at 450 Golden Gate will be backfilled by the FBI. Through the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, in this project, we are creating jobs and helping to stimulate the local economy. According to some estimates, the UNP project will create or save more than 1,300 jobs. It also has ambitious small goals requiring contractors to allocate 45% of subcontracting dollars to women-owned, disadvantaged, and veteran-owned small businesses. So at this time, I'd be remiss in my role as the acting RA if I didn't take a minute to recognize the team, the GSA team, who played a very instrumental role in getting this project moving and keeping it rolling. The Deputy Regional Commissioner for PBS, Patricia Chang Lin. Patricia. Director of Design and Construction, Kathy Lee. Project Manager, Monsi Egelham. Regional Recovery Act Executive, Matt Gier. And the San Francisco Service Center Director, Jim Kane. And of course, all of the other project team members. And none of these projects are possible without the assistance of our contractors, and it is many contractors, and I'm pleased to acknowledge the project's prime contractors. The architectural team of HKS, in association with their many local consultants, the construction management firm, Jacobs Engineering, construction firm of Hathaway Dinwiddie, the commissioning firm of AECOM, space planners of CRA Architects, the art and architecture designs of artist Cliff Garton from Cliff Garton Studios. For all of those, please give them a warm round of applause. So rather than go on and on about how excited GSA is to be coming to this building and how cool it is that we were able to save this building, let's get to the more interesting speakers. I couldn't be more pleased to welcome our first guest speaker. He's a man who literally needs no introduction. He's a man who's born and raised in the city he represents. The Honorable Gavin Newsom, Mayor of the great city and county of San Francisco, is with us today to celebrate this important occasion as we, as I've said before, breathe life into this historic element of the Civic Center. Mayor Newsom's interest and strong support for this project is exactly what this project needed. Please welcome Mayor Newsom.
I'm immeasurably thankful to President Obama and to our great speaker, Nancy Pelosi, that had the vision, that had the foresight, and had the political, in hindsight certainly now, political courage to step up and step in at a time when this country needed it, and provided us the resources, that $122 million to get us over the hump, to make sure that people, so many that are here today, are put to work. And I'm immeasurably grateful. And this is really the legacy of our times, were the contributions to the R Act and the contribution that's going to provide the resources to put people not only work on this project, but have been put to work on projects throughout the city and county of San Francisco, from some small to large projects like Doyle Drive, which simply, trust me, literally would not be done had it not been for her leadership, Barbara Boxer's leadership, Dianne Feinstein's leadership, and the President's leadership. So in their absence, a big round of applause to political courage in Washington, D.C. Final point. I know what you're all thinking. What possibly can be done to improve the area? Well, this is a big part of it. And I'm going to take credit for this because I need it. Because we've tried, we have struggled. I mean, you know, we have this beautiful plaza, or at least it was designed as one in 1975 by Halprin, and it had kind of lost its edge. We celebrated the 60th anniversary of the founding of the United Nations, and we had all these fancy folks come from all over the world, and including the new UN Secretary General, so we decided to fix it up a little bit. We even turned on the fountain outside. We had shut that down. And you don't want to know, trust me, you don't want to know why we shut it down. You don't. Just, you may want to lean over and ask a friend if you don't know what I mean. But we started to build on that, small improvements. We put together this new partnership to do what every single mayor has promised to do. And the next few will promise to do as well. And we're at a point, I mean this, I really actually believe this, where we're getting close to a tipping point here. And I'm really convinced that in 2013, the end of 13, 14, when this is done, we'll have reached that tipping point and arguably beyond. We're doing a police substation just down the road in spring of next year. The folks that are out there in the rain with this arts market have been out there as part of a way of revitalizing. When food trucks are out there as a way of revitalizing. We'll be here in a couple days to do a light arts installation in the area. We've got City Place, 250,000 square foot new retail establishment to anchor the fate and future of mid-market that finally got approved by our friends at the Board of Supervisors. You read between the lines there. I didn't say anything, but you read between the lines. And we have a small business loan program, which we finally got off the ground, $11.5 million just for this corridor. One of the recipients recently was Pearl's Deluxe Burgers. And you may go, what's the big deal? Well, that's one of the great burger joints in San Francisco that wants to open down here. 16 folks will be employed just right down the block. All these other restaurants coming in, Blick's Arts, right across the street, decided to locate here. And you have all these remarkable arts organizations that sincerely are committed to this area, and it will be arts that will revitalize this area, as it was the case in Manhattan, as it was the case in those very difficult parts of New York. And we're proud the NEA just gave us a grant, one of 4 in the country, for our work down here. We did arts in the storefronts, which became a national model. And I really believe, sincerely, that we're at that point where things are really going to take shape. So I have been desperate, and this I will close with, desperate to get to this point so people will learn more about what you are all doing here. Because this is critical to get 900 of you every single day walking in and out of this building in this area, completely changing the dynamics. And I'm convinced that will happen. And I'm convinced because this is happening, you've got those restaurants opening up. You have these retailers that are coming back into the area. And so this is really one of the great unfinished efforts that goes back, as Plato said, if there's any hope for the future, those with lanterns will pass them on to others. That lantern's been passed on from Feinstein to Agnos to Jordan, or vice versa. I can't remember which order they were in. And then Brown and myself and, Mayor Daley or whoever's next is your interim. I didn't know that was funny either, but you guys are an interesting crowd. But I just want folks to remember this moment, because it really is a seminal moment in the revitalization of our city and the heart of the city, which is this 60 square blocks that surround us, where 80% of our social services reside, where Glide and St. Anthony's, where our values are represented and our challenges are quite evident and visible. But I really am incredibly enthusiastic and thankful to all of you. Congratulations on the day. Thank you.
Thank you very much. On behalf of GSA, just a small token.
All right.
It's a Recovery Act coin. You can't spend it,
No, all right.
but you can have it.
Thank you. All right.
So.
Thank you. Made in China.
Now there's a hard one to follow. We're also honored to have other folks with us here at this occasion. I introduced Dan earlier. Dan has been the district director for Speaker Pelosi for the past 5 years. As Congress is in session at this time, we're honored that Dan is with us to represent Speaker Pelosi. Without a doubt, Speaker Pelosi's unwavering support for the Recovery Act has made it possible for GSA to begin the greening of the government and to undertake this project. With Speaker Pelosi's assistance, the Recovery Act will pay huge dividends for many generations to come. Please welcome Dan Bernal.
Thank you, Jeff, and thank you to Mayor Newsom. I think you're holding the only $122 million coin in our nation's history. So, as Jeff mentioned, Speaker Pelosi couldn't be here today. Congressional businesses kept her here in Washington, where they just passed or just extended middle-class tax cuts with a vote earlier today. So, she couldn't be here, but it was important. Now, Speaker Pelosi and Senator Boxer and Senator Feinstein all fought very hard to pass the Recovery Act, but none of the funds in the Recovery Act were congressionally directed. So it was GSA that saw the merits of this project and understood what it would do for our country, what it would do for the economy here in the Bay Area. It would create green jobs, and it would really set an example for environmentally sustainable architecture. So I'd also like to thank our friends with the architecture firm as well. And while she couldn't be here, she asked me to share a few words with you, which I'll read now. Dear friends, thank you for inviting me to join you at the construction kickoff ceremony for the renovation of the U.S. General Services Administration Regional Headquarters, the beautiful and historic 50 United Nations Plaza building. The American Recovery and Reinvestment Act is making a historic $4.5 billion investment to upgrade and modernize federal buildings and make them energy efficient, including $122 million for the 50 United Nations Plaza building. These investments will save taxpayers more than $1 million by slashing energy costs in our federal buildings by 25% and will help create good-paying jobs in the green building industry. The decision to restore 50 United Nations Plaza is good news for San Francisco, for the Civic Center area, and for our city's economy. Renovating this building, improving its energy efficiency, and making it more accessible for people with disabilities will create and save jobs for San Franciscans while using the facility as a GSA regional headquarters to improve the quality of life for those living and working in the Civic Center area. 50 United Nations Plaza is not only significant for San Francisco's economy, it is a vital part of our city's historic district. The building's architect also designed City Hall, the San Francisco Opera House, and the Veterans Building, all of which give our city its unique character and contribute to its beauty. I would like to thank all those who made this building's renovation possible, and to thank Acting GSA Regional Administrator Jeff Neely for his leadership in economically, sustainably, and efficiently managing our federal assets. We look forward to the day when the General Services Administration takes up residence in this jewel of American architecture. Best wishes for a memorable celebration. Warm regards, Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House. Thank you.
Please thank Speaker Pelosi. And Dan, we also happen to have another Recovery Act coin.
Is it $61 million?
It's going to get cheaper as the day goes on, I'm sad to say. Anyway, thank you, Dan. As I said a moment ago, Congress is in session. Both the House of Representatives and the Senate are tackling major issues as we speak, as Dan mentioned. Since Senator Barbara Boxer is unable to be with us, her field representative, Megan Miller, is standing in for the senator. Megan, we are grateful that the senator is also a stalwart supporter of GSA and the greening of the government. We're pleased you could be with us here today. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Megan Miller.
Thank you, everyone. It's really a pleasure to be here and exciting to think about the vision of this area of our city in the future. I am the Senator's field representative for San Francisco and Northern California, and as was mentioned, my boss is back in D.C. working her hardest as we speak. So on her behalf, I was asked to present the following greeting from her to you. Please accept my warmest greetings as you gather to celebrate the official groundbreaking for the upgrade of San Francisco's landmark 50 United Nations Plaza Federal Building. Thanks to $120 million secured through the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, this historic building will be renovated and utilized by GSA. Originally constructed in 1936, the 350,000 square foot building will receive much needed improvements, including new and energy efficient electrical, heating, and plumbing systems, and a seismic upgrade. Windows will be replaced, and the building will be brought up to ADA standards. When completed, the building is expected to be LEED Gold certified. The renovated building will ultimately hold the regional offices for GSA, which cover California, Arizona, Nevada, and Hawaii. I commend the City of San Francisco and GSA for their shared dedication to this important project. The 50 United Nations Plaza Federal Building, which was designated a National Historic Landmark in 1987, is a crucial component of San Francisco's renowned Civic Center. This Recovery Act project will not only restore one of San Francisco's architectural landmarks, but will also create or save more than 1,000 jobs throughout the construction and renovation process. I'd like to extend a special welcome to the distinguished guests who are here today, and I again send my best wishes as you mark this important and historic milestone. I look forward to 2014 when we will celebrate the completed renovation of this important building. Thanks very much. Sincerely, Barbara Boxer.
And in keeping with the fine tradition of devalued coins,
Thanks very much.
thanks. Thanks again, and please tell the senator thank you. The 50 UNP project is really about thinking outside of the box and turning the old traditional office environment into something that works for our time. Dan was telling me earlier he actually worked in the building and wanted to see the space that he had formerly occupied. I can tell you that the ideas that are going into the design of this building are incredible. It is going to be first-class, state-of-the-art office space. New ways of being productive require new workspaces that facilitate and enhance the way we work, the different ways that we work. Mark Donahue leads a group of architects who are doing just that for the projects. HKS architects are taking this 80-year-old federal office building and designing it to become a modern, open offices with an environment that will meet the needs of GSA into the 21st century. I find it exciting. I'm anxious for all that we've talked about to finally be constructed in this facility. So please welcome Mark Donahue.
Clearly saved best for last. If much of what I say sounds familiar, it's just because Jeff's speechwriter got to my speechwriter before I could. So my senior colleague Dan Jenkins sends his regrets. He's on his way. His flight was delayed in Frankfurt, and he either said, "I'm stuck here," or "8 tiny reindeer." I'm not really sure which one it was. The connection wasn't that great. So on behalf of the architectural engineering team, I'd really like to thank GSA for the opportunity to work on this magnificent project. We all feel very strongly that we're involved in something that's important, and happy to be involved. Let's see, Modern Workplace, LEED Gold. All right, well, just going to have to go for it. Right? So for many of us on the engineering and design team, the Recovery Act has really been a bridge from a very terrible 2009 across a chasm, actually, an economic chasm. And without it, many of us would not be here today. So we're very thankful for that. We're thankful to Congress, to our congressional representatives, and to all the politicians who've been involved up to the president. For the building, it's also a bridge into the future. This is a building whose fate was not determined. 75 years old, a lot of seismic problems, one more earthquake, and bam, she's gone. And now we have an opportunity to carry it another 75 years into the future. For GSA, this is an opportunity to show what can be done in an historic building. How can you take this building stock, the federal building stock, and convert it and reposition it so that as we advance into the 21st century, we can continue to use these buildings and take advantage of all the embodied energy, pay respect to the effort and the care that went into making these buildings. It's really an example of showing that the old is the new green, and we're very happy to be involved. So the amazing thing about a building like this is that it was created before the advent of air conditioning, and so it's really tuned to the climate. And so really what we had to come in and most of all is do as little as possible. However, since they don't pay you to do that, we did accomplish a few things. So the challenge was for the team to preserve what is already a beautiful asset. It's graced with ample daylight and natural ventilation, and we did improve upon it in concert with the GSA team. And it's really important to recognize that there's a lot of people sitting out there that I can see that have been working on this project for a long time to try to bring this vision to fruition, and you should be congratulated for that effort. So I do have a couple of facts that are really interesting. Even though this building didn't use much energy to begin with, it now is going to use 30% less than even that very low standard. The user-controlled environment, operable windows, I think, Jeff, you covered that very well. Thank you. But also 80% reduction in the use of water, which for Californians is going to be a critical issue as we're going forward here. We're already in the third year of a drought, though you couldn't tell from today, and that's a very important aspect of the building. And it is a flexible, dynamic workplace. The fact is that the way people work now is different than the way they worked in 1936, and it's going to change again very soon. As I've mentioned in some of our programming meetings, when the World of Warcraft generation comes to work, they're not going to want the same kinds of offices that we do. So it is on track for LEED Gold. I think we heard that before. And there's really not enough time for me to give credit where credit is due. I see a lot of people out there have been working very hard over the past 14 months to get this building positioned to begin construction. But today really just marks the beginning of the next phase, and we'll still need to follow through to make sure that what we have collectively planned together is executed. And I look forward to seeing all of you when the work has been completed, and we can relaunch this magnificent building into the future. Thanks very much.
Mark, thank you. And of course, we have for you the split four-way coin.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you
All right,
very
meet
much.
me at Mr. Smith's for drinks.
Yeah. And you'll be able to buy just what you paid for when you got that coin. So, I bet many of you have been asking yourselves, well, when does this whole shovel thing happen, and why is somebody buried right in front of Jeff? And some of you may have been asking yourselves, there's 5 of us and 6 shovels. What's up with that? Are we going to break one? That won't be the emergency, I promise. What I'd like to do is we'll come up now for basically the shovel event, the photo op moment. But I'd like to ask Greg Costco, he's the president CEO of Hathaway, to join us as we do the shovel event. So if we could all step forward. There is something in there. Again, 3.
One more.
One more?
Kind of fun.
1, 2, 3.